friends, I'm Christy Hughes, and you're listening to Rock the Damn Boat. If you've ever bitten your tongue to keep the peace or said yes when every part of you wanted to say no, this one's for you. We're diving into the messy, real stuff that people pleasers like me have spent years avoiding. It's time to have the hard conversations, shake things up, and learn to stand tall even when it makes waves. And it is February 1st when I'm recording this, the start of a new month, the start of a month full of heart energy. I'm so excited by the guests coming this month. I've already recorded 3 of the 4 episodes, and this allows me to take a little pause, a little winter break, if you will, and allow myself the time and space that I have not done since my corporate exit. And that is what today's Sunday Shortie is about, a little update on how things are going. November 21st of 2025 was my last day at my corporate job. I thought that I was going to spend December very quiet, giving myself a month of PTO. Well, surprise, I ended up closing my yoga studio somewhat unexpectedly, but when faced with that choice of keeping it open and struggling with another year extension on my lease, I decided that it was time to close the doors. So spent all of December trying to sell product, sell inventory, sell furniture, wind things down, get ready to launch a new business in 2026, and it was exhausting. January brought an interesting turn of events. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I did a mental health assessment. I was officially diagnosed with ADHD. Also learned recently that I am officially postmenopausal, so I am past the change here at 50, which feels a little early, but it's okay. A little less fluctuation happening, if you will. But January was a tough month for me mentally and with my mindset because I was so busy closing on the studio in December. January was going to be full of activity related to Thrive with Christy, my coaching chapter of my new self-employment. Launched the coaching program in January. I coached several women through my Thrive coaching program through virtual calls, which I love because if you are anything like me, you buy all of these courses that look interesting and sound like the exact solution that you're looking for, and then they sit in your inbox because they are not live calls. They are work at your own pace. I am terrible at completing those types of classes. I told myself that I was going to watch some of those courses here during my self-employment freedom flexible schedule, and I have not. Planned to have a retreat at the end of January. We got a massive ice storm in Texas, so the retreat had to be postponed. I had to remind myself that I was not a failure just because that happened, just because Mother Nature and Old Man Winter decided to get together and ice us all in last weekend. However, what I've really been struggling with is what I want to do this year at all. I've talked repeatedly about wanting to write full time, but I find myself wrestling with the idea of that because I don't get paid for it. I can log on and I can pull up my manuscript and I can work for hours on the story, and I'm not making a dime. And sure, I could write on platforms like Substack, and I've been dabbling in that because I love to write, and that's definitely a platform for people who love to write. I did a boot camp about monetizing my Substack, but it involves so much promotion, self-promotion, marketing, presence, being out there and in front of people multiple times a day. And that is not what I want to do right now. And I've been talking to more than one friend, actually. I have a great support network that are helping me through this very transitional time. And I shared with one of them, if you're watching The Pivot Year by Brianna Wiest, I have talked about this book before. I am actually almost through with it. I'm going to be heartbroken when it's over. And maybe if I start it over again for the next 365 days after that, the messages will land differently. Who knows? But day 352 was exactly what I needed to hear the other day when I was very down on myself about who am I? What is my identity now? I feel like when I got sober, and you talk about the hole in the donut, that's how I feel right now, the hole in the donut. I know what I'm being called to do, but when I get quiet and still, I just feel a little bit empty. And the writing from day 352 says, you will become most concerned with how you are seen when you are not okay with how you are feeling. It is in actuality far simpler to convince the outside world that you are confident and free, and a much deeper process to actually become that way. That reading really spoke to me. I, of course, underlined the part that said it's a much deeper process to actually become that way. So becoming confident and free. Yes, I have freed myself from the 9-to-5 grind. I have this schedule that I can craft however I would like to. And yet I kept finding myself gravitating to the things that were going to be income generating. And I've said before, I have enough in savings that I could take time off and be okay. That's what we work for, right? It's like working to save for retirement. You save so that you don't have to work. And yet I can't wrap my mind around that. What it means to let go of that identity that has defined me for so long. And I know I'm not alone in this. There are other podcasts that are specifically about corporate exits. There are women who are therapists and have programs that are specifically tailored to this sort of identity crisis. So I'm living through it, and I'm sharing the experience with you so that you know that if you are looking at me as a role model for leaving corporate, that you're going to run into this instance where it is going to feel strange and weird. And I have a guest coming up later this month who kind of talked me through that and normalized that for me, because you've done something your entire life that was dictated by someone else, and not in the sense that you didn't choose your career, because I chose retail. I chose to be a buyer. Then I chose to move to sales. I was excited and honored to be promoted to a director of sales. I thought that was going to be my job for the foreseeable future. Letting go of that label of my working title, director of sales, definitely creates this stripping away. And it brings freedom, yes, freedom of time, but it also removes a label that you had for yourself. It removes a steady paycheck, and in my instance, a very comfortable paycheck. So it is just really strange for me to be living through this. I also keep coming back to this idea of the Chinese lunar calendar and the year of the snake, the shedding of the snake. We keep talking about this. And today I saw a post about what the fire horse year is bringing. And for Gemini, it says, your ideas have wings this year. Fire horse energy sparks your communication gifts and brings opportunities to share your voice. Own your power by committing to one vision and going all in. Focus becomes your superpower. And this was from an Instagram account called Spirit Daughter. I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. Now, if my one thing is writing, well, then I'm not sure where that leaves the podcast. But if I lean on the fact that communication gifts, that I'm sparking my communication gifts, that is my voice and my words on paper. So I am leaning heavily into all of that. This is going to be a messy path, very messy. Writing as it stands today, not going to generate revenue. It's not going to generate income, but it's what I love. And if that is a gift, as I've been told by other people, it is, that is what I am tapping into. That is what I'm focusing on. As far as using my voice, I love this podcast. And a lot of what I talk about on the podcast represents and reflects things that I write about. So it's a really nice compliment to what I'm doing, say, over on Substack. I've spent a lot of the last month trying to get my quote unquote business organized. So closing down the rootedsoul.com, getting thrivewithchristy.com up and running, trying to decide if I'm going to rename the LLC because it's still named Part-Time Pastures after when we had the Airbnb and retreat business. I've continued to obsess over getting everything organized and structured correctly, when honestly, what I need to be doing right now to help ease this transition is to focus my efforts on what I enjoy the most. I'm excited every time I sit down to edit an episode of this podcast. I absolutely love it. I'm excited when I sit down to write more of my historical fiction novel, which is only about halfway through. I need to stop obsessing over the word count, because if I just finish the story, it will land where it needs to land in terms of being a full book. I'm not excited when I have to create social content, when I have to be on all the time. Being a creative entrepreneur, just being an entrepreneur in general, means that you're marketing 24/7, you're marketing yourself. That is the part that I am not excited about. Eventually, I need to hire a social media manager because I used to love creating content, but now there's this sense of obligation. There is this pressure that if I'm not out there constantly in your face about all of these things that I'm doing, that I'm not going to be successful at them. And that's just not true. I am a firm believer that the right people hear the right message at the right time. I don't remember where I first heard the phrase that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, but that has always rung true for me. So whether it's a book that I bought years ago and finally read at the point that I need it the most, whether it's these messages from the Pivot Year and Brianna Weiss that are landing on the exact day that I need to hear them, that is how my offerings and my gifts and my communication are going to land out in the world. And whether it's you sharing an episode of this show with a friend who needs to hear it, or you coming to a retreat or working with me in some way, I am incredibly grateful for that. And I know that if someone chooses to work with me, it's because they feel the deep connection that I want them to feel, and not because they saw one of 50 posts that I posted on social media or even on Substack. As much as I love it, there's a recommendation that you post notes 4 or 5 times a day. I just don't have that desire. I have the bandwidth, I have the freedom, but I just don't want to be constantly churning out content, because that will lead to burnout just as quickly as my retail career did. So those are things that I am wrestling with as I enter into February, leaving corporate and then expecting to rest, but instead closing the studio and grieving the loss of that 2-year chapter of my life. Thinking January was going to look a certain way with launching Thrive with Christy, with coaching and speaking engagements. I've been applying for speaking engagements and hearing crickets. I have had to postpone the retreat. So all of that has been unexpected. Then it's left me in this quiet and sometimes empty place of, who am I without that career? Who am I without that steady paycheck? I am beyond excited about what's to come. And even though I'm experiencing these moments that feel heavy, I still feel great about my decision. I'm continually trying to silence the inner critic, which for any of us, regardless of where we're at in life, she can get loud at times. And it's embracing February with a sense of gratitude. I am working to continue to fill up my heart with all of the things that bring me joy. These conversations, writing, being grateful for the small things. I got a candle from my friend Ashley and it says gratitude on the front. And so I like that. And I think about not only that physical expression of gratitude, but just the gratitude that I hold in my heart for the support system that I have, for friends who are giving me pep talks right now and who love that I've inspired them in this way. And so they're just trying to help cheer me on, because we all know, and I know deep down in my heart, that there is a reason for the timing of my corporate exit. And even though right now it may not be bringing the type of income that replaces my salary, that's okay, because there is some reason that I left. I don't get my nails done anymore. I went back to my natural hair color so that I don't have to get highlights. There are ways that I'm learning to live with less. And that's a lesson in itself, is just learning to be more frugal. That needs to be next week's Sunday Shortie. Is all about dealing with the mindset that comes from my grandmother, who worried about money nonstop. And so we're going to unpack that another day, my money mindset. But I am doing my prosperity meditations every day. I was grateful to take a little screenshot of my bank account because I had a couple of refunds that came from canceling some subscriptions, and my first Substack subscriber, and some other, I think it was Amazon. I had a couple of people buy my book off of Amazon. And so I had all these tiny little amounts get deposited into my bank account. But hey, I'll take it. I'm grateful. I am grateful to you for listening. This is Sunday Shortie, and I will talk to you again soon. You've been listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast produced and recorded by Christy Hughes. You can follow, subscribe on both Apple and Spotify, and your 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you so much for your support of the show.